Welcome to Unbiased and on the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you guys so much for joining us. It is Tuesday, and we're talking about all sorts of energy stuff happening with Michelle Wolfe. How are you, Michelle?
I'm good, guys. Still here, buzzing a little bit more every day. Yeah. So feeling it, kind of a little wide-eyed, waiting for, what we're going to experience sort of this week and through the full moon and the solstice and all the different energies. So just treading the water, surveying, what's going on, but I feel good and definitely feeling a lot of vibrations through the body constantly, consistently now. So,
I've got constant ear ringing since we last got together and talked about it, and I was even wondering. I'm like, man, am I getting an ear infection or something? It's like constant tinnitus, and it's associated with. It sounds like there's like a ringing in the ear, but it sounds like it's stimulated by outside sound. So when people talk loud, I hear it's almost like feedback on a microphone when somebody's giving their presentation, and the mic's almost feeding back, and it kind of just rings when they say certain words and stuff. It's
reverberates.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a beep sometimes. If it's a really quick, loud sound, it'll just sound like beep, like I heard a beep. But it's always on that
Wow.
same key, which is strange. And I don't know if it's connected, but like my sleep time, like when I get up and I'm still in alpha state, I've had some really cool lucid dreams. And I don't know, I just seem like I'm able to linger in that world a little bit longer, that dreamlike world.
Oh
And it
yeah.
seemed like it happened with that ringing. So I'm not sure what's going on, but I did want to share that because
Yeah.
it's cool, you know.
Well, I definitely notice, like when coming out of sleep, and my ears ring very, very loud for a long time. Like, they ring constantly. There's been accelerations over this week, and multiple layers of tones that have kicked in for me. Um, my mom too, for the first time, had the clicking in her ears. So that was a new thing for her too, which I like. Like we said last week, can mention these things, months before or whatever. So it's interesting to see it trickle over. And um
Are you
uh,
still getting the clicking too, or has it changed for you?
this week I have got some clicking this week. Yeah, I do find when things pick up with the energy and the pressure kicks up, not all the time, but I can get the clicking. But what I did really notice in particular was, I'll often get several tones, but I was surprised at how loud all of them were. Like, to have five tones, sometimes I really kind of have to tune in to, pick up each of them. But I was really surprised by how loud some of them were and how particular they were in their sound. Like, one was like a almost like a beeping, like you said, but it was like a repet like beep 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 beep, like that.
You were doing that, and it was making mine beep
Do
in my
it?
ear. Yeah, it was harmonizing with the beep that you were doing. You were like, beep, 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 and it's like beep, 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 in my ear. Remember I said it's stimulated by outside sound? So you
Yeah,
did
and
that,
it's
and it
like
totally triggered it. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I really noticed that this week. I was like, wow, that's really I've noticed, because usually it's more like flat tones or straight tones, not necessarily a reverberation with it. But that is, I do notice or am able to separate the tones based on the reverberations in the tones, like the different frequencies.
Yeah.
Um, and can sense the increasing reverberations or the slowdowns in those reverberations. So I think when it's vibrating really fast, you're hearing like just more like a, seems like just a straight tone. um but then other times the frequencies slowed down a little bit or come out with that reverberation to them, the wah 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 or ba 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 ba, those sorts of things. But then yeah, like the crackling or the, and that's a completely different thing entirely. Or any zinging or popping sensations, like it feels like in your brain, like you're getting electric static discharge in your brain and you can hear it. So that's another sensation that you may experience if you haven't yet. I think it's something that kind of progresses
When you
with the
get that,
crackling.
when you
Mhm.
get that sort of electric feeling, and you can, do you get it to where you can almost feel it like in the roots of your teeth? It feels like almost like,
Yes,
okay, so
like I'm chewing on tinfoil. I've mentioned this months ago.
right, you can
Yes.
really feel it at the root of like the root of your
Mm,
teeth, and like in, I don't know, it just feels like it's almost like a
yes.
little jolt of
Yeah.
electricity.
And
I've gotten that before, and it
yeah.
seems like it's tied with movement sometimes. I'm not sure why, but like if I was rounding the bottom of the stairs, I would get it. It would jolt me, or if I was coming out the end of an aisle at the store and someone almost rammed into me, and I had to, then I'd feel a jolt. It was almost like connected with adrenaline, even maybe. So I don't know if it.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing out what my
Like a
experience has
heightened
been.
state.
Yeah, it was really
Heightened
strange
state.
though.
So that, I think, is stimulating it, but it's kind of shaking things up. I
Yeah,
mean, I think I think it's readjusting and recalibrating so much.
yeah.
And and when we're in that state, we often have the vertigo and everything go in. So like when you were saying, like you may jump or move suddenly, and often when we're in that state too, we are getting that vertigo. So we get sudden movements
Mm-hmm.
can cause a variety of sensations
Mm-hmm.
in that state, whether it be increased pitch or dizziness, or many different things. And
Yeah.
I really think it's a recalibration thing. It's just trying to reintegrate all this energy moving around, all these sensations, these things going on within your form, and then moving that form within your environment. And it's just recalibrating and adjusting to these new sensations and new frequencies and new energies that you're picking up, and the new way that your body is physically able to process it,
Mm-hmm.
and what you're picking up from that. So and I think that's where things can really start to snowball, and where we're getting the multiple stimulations and the multiple things happening at the same time, like we talked about with the ears ringing, and then now getting the sensation in the jaw. Like I think there was so much energy the other week, my jaw felt bruised.
Mm.
It was that sore. It was that sore. um and feeling those sensations, and it'll go down to the throat now too. But I've been experiencing the head's been a lot, like this always is. It's kind of almost a constant thing now, but um the way it's the distribution of flowing that through the heart energy. So I'm experiencing a lot of activations within the chest and within the heart area and the root chakra over the last couple weeks or
Because
last
we were
few weeks.
talking about the rocking being.
Still, again, I want to bring that up again. It really is, I believe, now tied really to the root chakra activation, because I felt that come in again with the full moon. Could really feel the energy in the lower chakra, like in my hips, in the sensation, and I noticed the rocking coming, kicking, like really kicking back in with it. And it's like stabilizing that. It's just part of a way to adjust to all this energy coming in.
It's like we're in the
So
vortex, and then you feel all
yeah,
this
and you're
energy
just
just.
kind of trying to push it through, like trying to let the energy flow through. I think that part of the rocking is doing that,
Yeah.
almost allowing it to release and work through. But I did notice that really pick up again with the full moon, and the need to do the rocking again, and really feeling the stimulation with the root chakra, really feeling the energy in the vortex, actually the spinning uh, low, and in the legs, and feeling like jolts and muscle twitches, all kinds of weird things like that going on with it. But this stimulation going on with the heart has been very interesting for me, from when I had the dream a few weeks ago, early in May, where I got that embodiment activation, and it felt like the spark, like, literally ignited in my chest of energy, and it just
Mm-hmm.
whoosh, and it was a full feeling of embodiment. So I really feel like since that dream, it's been trying to introduce that and work that, growing that heat, that flame, those sparks, in stimulation into my waking environment. So I'm noticing the results of when I'm feeling stimulation of energy coming in, either the head, um, the crown chakra coming in, or coming up from the root. There's a concerted effort every single day now to be really connecting from earth, grounding into heart up, and from crown, and the Christ consciousness, bringing that and grounding and connecting those things together within the heart, and then feeling that stimulation. And I'm getting increasing sensations of what I experienced in that dream, the preliminaries of the combustion, the sensations, like actually like sparks and twitches and zaps within the chest. That's increasing. So I am really excited about that. I think it's a progress, after really being able to feel what embodiment feels like in that state and dream. Really excited about the possibility of bringing that into the waking. I'm seeing the results of that awareness every
Mm-hmm.
single day, and the physical response is increasing. So it's like getting to that point, like just before combustion, and feeling like all the zinging going
Yeah,
on,
it's
like zing, zing, zing,
ecstatic.
like
Yeah.
static going on within
Yeah.
within the heart,
But it's
like I'm getting
ecstatic.
electrocuted.
It can be overwhelmingly. It feels great, you know what I mean. But it can also, I can see. So have you had the how I described last week about sort of the amplification of whatever you're feeling? I mean, that can push you into more. If you're feeling agitated or aggravated about something, it can like amplify those feelings. But
Mhm.
if you're feeling blissful, you can feel extra ecstatic in that moment by, you know, so it's really seems to be amplifying the feelings. Are you feeling that too?
Absolutely. It is sometimes, with the level of the downloads and energies coming in, sometimes a bit of a battle. Like I'm really noticing the the ego mind and the heart mind,
Mm-hmm.
the higher self mind. And when there's a lot of this energy coming in, and a lot of these downloads come in, that the ego mind is just wants to jump up and run around and la 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 la, you know eh,
Right.
um and I really have to, like, I have to really focus through the meditation to really keep calming that down, bringing it in instead of letting it go out, bringing it in and processing it through the heart to
So it's
just
like the energies are really sort of bringing things to the surface thing because I've been noticing this with you know, I don't know, just like people sort of perceiving things wrong or jumping to conclusions or things along these lines that they're
Mhm.
really creating a reality that doesn't even really exist in a
It's
way.
all projection. Well, you're projecting internally your experience. You're interpreting your interpretation of your
Right.
experience. What is the story that you're telling yourself about your experience?
Almost taking themselves too seriously, I think.
For sure. Oh
You
yeah.
know, I
Well,
think that's
that's it.
that's a huge thing.
When we get so emotional, I think we do take ourselves too seriously, and because I think in a lot of ways that you're letting that ego mind have the conversation.
Yeah.
You're letting it take over your interpretation. You're letting it tell the story of how
Yeah.
you being done wrong, of how, like, whatever it is, it's telling you a story that is giving you justification for your current state of mind,
Right.
or justification for, why you would feel that way, right? So
Hmm.
you have to be very careful about that, to really step outside of those words, to realize that in a lot of ways we can have these two separate conversations going on
Hmm.
uh, within us, and it's very easy in these times, especially when we're moving away from counting on that egoic mind to run everything, and we're moving to this heart-centered approach to everything, and a viewpoint, and projecting that out, which is unjudgmental and unbiased.
Hmm.
And what is happening right now, what you may find is that the that egoic part of yourself is maybe tempted to throw some temper tantrums, maybe tempted to, because it's not being heard as much. So it's almost like um it's not just that the energies can trigger things, but it's that the egoic mind is being pushed out of its role, and it doesn't know what to do now. And so sometimes it wants to just hop up and step up and be heard, and can go on and carry on a tyrant. So, and if we get lost in that too much, we start to take that on as our constant perspective. So it really, I do think, takes a daily habit of separating yourself from that perspective, um,
Totally.
from
And
really
even
slowing
like,
down. Hmm.
and that's a great point. And I even go to the point of even thinking of thoughts that come to my mind as being the devil on the shoulder, the angel on the shoulder, not in a real sense, but just in a, you know, is that a loving thought or is that a fearful thought? You know, and really just
Hmm.
being completely aware of your thoughts, even, you know what I mean? And
Where it's coming from,
yeah,
like really slowing it down, so that the response, you're not responding to situations instantaneously
right. You
with the
sort of
thought that
examine
comes
it.
in. You're slowing it down enough to process. Is like, well, is where is it coming from? Is it coming from my heart, from my higher self,
Yeah.
or is it coming from a need of my egoic mind?
And it is
Is it
like a point of view of like looking at it as, from a third person point of view, and well, how is he going to take this, and
without
how
judgment?
is he going to respond? You know, and you're looking at
Hmm.
yourself like you're a different person, but it does really get you away from the emotions of stuff. You know what I mean? Say, you know,
And you don't have to respond to things the way that you always have before.
yeah,
Like really, and this is where meditation is so important, because it really does slow down that process of in interactions with other people or
yeah,
situations where the whatever it is exchange happens. You're not going from the thought regurgitate. You're really, because we all think these things, they swirl. It's part of who we are. It's part of accepting your shadow self and loving your shadow self. It's not telling it, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about, sit down, be quiet. It's saying, listen, I understand you have this need, you have a need to be heard, a need to be expressed, but that's not necessary in this situation. We actually don't have to approach it that way, and can choose to approach it another way, and look through, to take a non-judgmental step back, and even look at, to slow down conversations enough to even look at, what are the variety of different ways that I could possibly respond to this situation, completely outside of the box of anything you typically do or don't do. We get so used to dealing with those things, and really reevaluating. It could be from the scale of ridiculous to no response at all.
Yeah.
And look at how they make you feel. Look at where those reactions are coming from. Look at the intentions that are driving those responses. Where are those responses coming from? What are the motivations for those kinds of responses? You're going to find yourself a lot more honest with yourself on what is motivating you to respond in certain ways. What I have found increasingly so over the last few weeks is less and less need to respond at all,
Mm-hmm. And
which may be
another thing with
frustrating
taking
for
this,
others, but
yeah, but you don't have to get drawn into that drama if you don't want to. You can, I mean, it's your choice to step into it. It's your choice to allow someone to make you angry. It's your choice to, to be happy or not, Are you going
it's
to
your
decide to be
story.
happy? Yeah, it's your story.
It's your story. Now you can make it really complicated story and fill it with a whole bunch of reasons that you can fact check and this and that of why you're justified. And all of these different things sounds great, and you can tell everybody your reasons on why you do what you do or think the way that you think. But at the end of the day, it even comes down to that, well, why do you need to?
Right.
Like it becomes so simple as that. The more elaborate your explanations become, the more it's your ego
Yeah.
um sort of trying to tell your story and your reasons why and justifications for any behaviors, choices, or actions that you make.
And it is taking that step back and you're looking at yourself much differently from the outside as you are from the inside. But what that also does is it allows you to look at the other person because, I mean, think of the interactions we have per day. Somebody cutting you off in traffic. When you're outside of yourself, if you're upset if you're in the driver's seat. But if you're sort of observing the person in the driver's seat from the third person point of view, and then you're observing the other driver, well, maybe their kid's in the hospital and they're trying to rush to get there or something, and you just consider something else, it really takes away that anger right away because you're not in the victim's position of the person that got cut off. You're like
Mhm.
sort of
I
taking
really
the
like the approach. I really like the approach of you. You know what? Try pretending that you're deaf mute. So you cannot hear. You're just simply looking at the behaviors of people and their expressions,
hmm
right? Subtle or large. And no words are required. How simply would you communicate? How much would you need to communicate, right? And how much would you observe of others' body language? What would you see as far as what their motivations or their energy is, or what they're putting out, or what they're projecting? What is it they're trying to tell you with all of this gesticulation, all of this stuff? Um, when you take the words out of it, we spend so much time focused on what they said and what they meant by that. And often there's very little truth in what people say as opposed to what their actual intentions and motivations are. And even good people, we don't realize how subtly we can do this. Um yeah, so it's it's a little test you might find interesting, um to be able to tune out and all the analysis of what people say. Well, what could they mean by that? And simply just look at behavior without the words. And you're going to find a lot less necessity for words, a lot more understanding of how people project their energy out at you and their intention for doing so, how they try to bowl you over with it, how they try to play a victim role so you feel sorry, all kinds of different things. It really allows you to view situations in a very different way when you're not focused on, well, they said this and they said that. Well, they must have meant this. And well, they must have meant that. You'll take it differently because you won't take it all about you. I think that's one of the main things. When you just kind of look at it like that and the words aren't all about you,
Yeah, I've
it's
seen that in
not
the
all
chat
about you.
before. where
right?
it almost seems like, maybe someone's giving someone else a hard time, but they're really holding a completely different conversation, and you can see the person's taking it wrong and stuff. You're like, oh my gosh, you can see, and that really gets back to that whole creating the reality, because it was real for them. What they thought was happening.
Yeah. Well, they experienced it, so why wouldn't it?
Right.
They would experience the emotional results
Yeah.
of that incident, whether it was that person's intention or not.
Right.
So is that person sorry that the other person? It's not about them.
They didn't
It's
even
about the
know. The other
person with the,
people were
yeah,
having a
no, they wouldn't even
conversation.
know.
They didn't even know that.
No, because it's not about them. It's not what they're projecting. It's about what the individual is projecting into the conversation.
Yeah.
And you find less need to be concerned. You can kind of really remove yourself from situations in instances where people do push their energy in a negative way that you don't want to be around. It's much more easy to detach yourself from those things, separate yourself, not take it personally. It's not about you. That's just the energy that they are projecting at that time. That's
And
it.
right now, that's being amplified.
And it's just being and that's it. And how you then interpret or take that in or deal with it or is completely different. You don't take it on personally. You don't take their story
Hmm.
on personally onto yourself. And we're plied with stories in so many ways. Everything around us is contrived, from the news. It's all contrived stories.
Yeah.
And and we
Distractions, though.
yeah, and we often, many of us have or do have done or do tell a variety of stories about who we are, why we do what we do. And it's time that people realize that those are just stories too. Even though you're speaking them about yourself, who's telling that story? What is that story really telling about you? Why do you need to tell the story?
It's like a backpack full of beliefs
It
that you're toting
is.
around
Oh,
that you
this
really
is
don't have
me.
to.
Is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah,
Is
look through
it?
this bag. This is me. Yeah, it is
Is it
almost
you
like
the
that.
victim? Is it
Yeah.
you the, you know, what is that story? And
So many programs. It's like we're running these programs that
yeah, that you
were
don't even
installed. It's
realize.
these apps that you didn't really want installed on your
Yes.
smart body, right? But over the
Yeah.
years, different people install the apps, and we have to sort of go through. It's an arduous task, but we have to go through the apps and say, you know what? I don't ever use this. I don't need
I
this.
don't use that anymore.
I don't
And
even
I,
know if I believe this.
I
You
think
know what I
that's what's
mean? Or
happening now.
yeah,
With these timeline collapses and resolving these past issues of different ways that we used to deal with situations or people before, not having that same perspective anymore, not approaching those things in those ways, and having those timelines and those belief systems collapse, um, is really, I think, accelerating, allows you to see that perspective more and more, um, and really creates is created very surreal dreamlike quality to memories now. It really has, and yeah, it's like, because it's like watching a movie of somebody else, because not even in you're not in that role. I mean, I think when we really notice that we drop these stories, when we drop these stories about that situation or that life event or that relationship or that job that we had or whatever it was, about what our situation or our circumstance was at that time, and when we really do release those stories, the memories of those, all of that situation becomes very loose now. It's like viewing it through water. It's um yeah,
but a
really.
lot of that there can be there could be pain associated with having to drop some of that stuff. That's my parents' legacy, and I was really carrying it along because of them. Or there's so many different things that we put so much weight into that affect us, and there can be a lot of depression. I've heard about a lot of people going through depression and sad times, and I don't know if it's just amplifying maybe feelings they already have, because we've talked about that, or if the energy is just bringing stuff up. But it is hard to let go. I
That
mean,
is
one of
hard
my
to
saddest things was, when I realized what I did about Christianity. That was a really sad time for me, and I really had to come full circle and realize, hey, the whole thing's not trash. It's just got some man-made stuff mixing things up, and I had to reanalyze it and be. So it was just the time, but there was some sad times with that.
But it was part of your process as a whole.
Yeah,
And it's part
definitely.
of
Yeah.
shedding those things. One thing I did want to mention, which I think you'll like this term. I noticed with these energies coming in, and when we're really trying to sift up these things to the surface or past experiences or whatever. What I've noticed is, do you ever get memories? I call it cringeworthy memories. Like where you do stuff, like where I'm lying in bed at night trying to go to sleep, and all of a sudden a cringeworthy memory comes up where you literally it's like you can't even look at your own memory. It's so embarrassing or whatever it was. Like you're like, oh, I
Right.
actually have to turn away from my own memory, like turn away from myself. I'm
You know
like,
what I've done for that is I re-envision it the way I wish I would have done it, and
yeah.
then act like that's the memory and try not to ever think about it again.
But I noticed a real flush up of cringeworthy memories. And I really thought, I really felt like this is just part of that process of flushing up these, these little scenarios that you pocket away and don't want to look at, right? For whatever reason, because they're just the worst shade of you at the worst time in your life, or whatever they are. Or maybe it's just some stupid, embarrassing thing you said or did at the wrong moment, whatever it is. But they're still in there, it's still pocketed way in there. And I did notice sort of this real kind of rising up and flushing of at times these cringeworthy memories where you just like want to turn away from yourself. But you're right. You just
Those are
you
almost
gotta be
like
like, nope,
pillars.
don't
Those are almost
tonight.
like
Just like,
pillars of who you are, though. Think of it
mm-hmm.
like because that happened, you almost always for sure don't go down that path again. So it becomes this. It
You
becomes
would
this
hope.
this anchor. Like okay, note to
Yeah.
self: don't do that anymore. Or whatever.
I
And
you know
it
what? I think that's part of it too. I think that's part of it as well, is how much has changed for me, inside, and the way that I approach everything.
yeah.
So that, yeah, it's kind of reevaluating a lot of different memories and those sort of resurfacing. You're like, who was that?
Right. Who was that? I'd certainly not do that now. That's a lot of
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
won't do that now because you've experienced that. So it's
In
although
such a different place. It's hard to, yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
I have a
Hmm.
lot of time like that as a Christian and stuff. But it gives and that's another thing. It gives me patience with people that do things to me. That's far well, actually, it's far worse. But it's like a lot of times people will say things I used to think, but I never would really say that. I'm just not that kind of person. But they'll say things that I used to think, but
Hmm.
it helps. You know,
Hmm.
it helps to be patient.
I used
you
to
know.
love saying what other people thought. I was very good at it. But that's it too. Even less and less need for that, which is good. It's just doing what's in front of me, what's asked at that time, and dealing with each subject or each instance, or and as it is in front of me, not having to push or project forward
Oh
unless
yeah,
required.
I'd say whatever
Mhm.
YouTube's doing with the shadow banning, keep doing it because with them doing that, I don't get all the trolls and stuff. So
Mhm.
you know, I've definitely got some silver lining in there.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
You used to get one or two a week, but it's like nobody finds you unless somebody shares you, and it's somebody that wouldn't do that anyway. So that's
Mhm.
cool.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 So it's not near as bad as it used to be. I remember like when we first started, over a year ago, it was like some of the yeah, it was hard for me at first, some of the comments, and I just be like heartbroken. It's not so easy. But you know what? It's that doesn't even happen. I don't even read like I do sometimes, but I don't focus on it. I do go in and I read the chat typically after the show, and like that day I'll see like if there are any comments, but I don't go back the next day, and I don't go back the next day, or to see what anybody else said, or respond and see if they respond, like that whole back and forth thing. I just don't need to, don't have any need to do that anymore. But I did want to make a point of saying today how much I appreciate um how supportive you guys are in the chat, and just
Yeah,
some
you guys are
really
awesome.
really great comments. And I just wanted to take a moment to let you know that it really does mean a lot, and it really makes me feel great. I think last week somebody said that I was a joy, or just different things like that, and I was like, wow, it really is special to me, and I appreciate it. And it helps bring me back every week to keep sharing all this stuff. So yeah. So thank you guys. It means a
Yeah,
lot
everybody's so awesome.
to hear your appreciation and know that I do go back and I do see that. So even though when I'm talking with Shane on the show now, I'm not seeing the chat as we're talking. I do want you to know that I do appreciate all the nice comments that you say, and I do see them afterwards, and it really helps spur me on, yeah, and give me encouragement to keep doing this. So
Dustin said, "Whatever, man. Everybody knows you faked that UAP to jack everyone up for ECETI." Somebody kicked Dustin out. He's being a troll. I'm just playing.
is that's your video?
Yeah, he's talking about the
Your
UFO,
secret,
and then
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
it was funny, because somebody put, "This is bad CGI," and it like made my day. I was like, "Wow,
I
somebody
know.
thinks it looks cool enough to think it's faked." Wow, that's like. I offered
I'm
to
so
send him the
happy.
originals, but I
Yeah,
don't know. I have yet to
whatever.
get an email, but
Yeah.
I will gladly send them. I think that it has like the location and all that stuff on from the phone if you get the original. So if anybody thought I faked it, I can send you the 11-second clip.
Yeah, or they can have a conversation with me.
And that's funny
That's
because
where the
that's
feisty comes out, eh? Not so much for myself anymore, but you know what? For the people that I care about, I'm like, I can have something to say about that.
exactly, and everybody in this community is so protective of one another that if a troll
Yeah.
comes in and starts saying something, I usually just get rid of them so people don't get triggered and start taking
Yes.
up for people.
Sure,
You
sure.
know.
And your home address is?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Big sister
exactly.
taking out for me. No, everybody feels like that in this community though. They look out for one another. It's really cool.
Well, you know what? I think we all respect and realize um how this is coming forward with the ideas and talking about the things that we do, and openly and bravely, and wanting to share those things in a positive way, not really having to push agendas on people. So you know I think everybody here is like, hey, let's just respect that environment and keep it that way, and keep that respect going. So I don't think anybody here wants that environment polluted and tampered with
Exactly.
for all of our benefit, right?
Yeah. But
Mm.
even then, it's sort of you don't know how to take people, and you're like, man, is he trolling? Is he, And I can see some people like, will see it a little more trolly than I do, maybe, and then
Mhm.
and I'm like, well, give them a little more of a chance, and
Mhm.
because sometimes people just say things that seem controversial, but they're honestly asking or whatever too. So I always give people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to
Yeah.
something like that. I don't jump to really any conclusions. Like,
No, because how what it's like, it's just typing. Like text. Like that's one of the easiest way. Never argue in text. It's so easy to completely misinterpret everything that's being said.
especially when you're trying to say it really quick and it just sounds
Oh, if
short
you come
and
off like, yeah, it's like, what's your problem? There's no problem. Yeah. So, and the, chat can be the same way. So yeah, kind of have to give a little bit of the benefit, or mistypes or different things like that. So, but when they come out,
autocorrect.
start
You gotta
hitting that,
love those mistakes. I've seen some pretty
yeah,
funny
the
ones. But
autocorrect mistakes. Well, those are just entertaining, right? Yeah. But I think we all know is when they kind of start coming out the door nasty,
right.
or perverted or whatever it is, it's pretty easy to spot. So, Lord knows you have enough moderators.
Oh yeah, yeah,
There's enough
definitely.
wrenches out there. So, hmm
Probably so many more could be moderators too. I actually I added a forum to my website, and I was wanting to add a thread in there for symptoms so people can get on there, talk about
hmm
anything they've got going on and stuff, and then we can talk about that during the week. So I need to add that.
that'd
I
be
did add
awesome.
one for. I added one for ECETI for people that's going and they want to try to ride share or coordinate their trip from the
Yes, I know
airport.
there's people that do need. Yeah, there's people that do need some help sort of coordinating rides, or so it'd be good to have some kind of list or sign up list for
Yeah.
those looking to coordinate with others. Or
hmm
if they could go on and, yeah,
And there's the forum for that. So they can go to my website,
perfect.
uotf.net, register for the forum. That way it's private and you don't have to worry about just anybody getting your information if you want to email back and forth to make arrangements and things like that. So
Mhm.
it's less public than, of course, the
Mm.
YouTube chat. So,
Hmm.
but I thought
I
adding the symptoms in there, that would be cool to just kind of expand on what we discuss on there, because I think it'd be cool
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I do because I've received a few emails. So I don't, my arrangements are set. So as far as a vehicle and stuff goes, I don't have any because I've already received a couple emails from people looking. So I'm glad you brought that up because for people looking to ride share, I because I don't my car's full with who I'm with. So I'm glad you mentioned the forum because I want to keep having to tell people I'm sorry. So, because I've already answered a few of them. So that's good that you started that. I was concerned about it. But yeah, it'd be great if you had something there too. If like people wanted to post symptoms or questions that we can bring up on Tuesdays
Hmm.
um, as well. That would be really helpful. You know, if there's specific things that people wanted to ask, that would be really great.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Just
Hmm.
and then just for people to read on there that maybe they don't want to come out in the chat and discuss their symptoms, they can discuss on there, and it can be a whole new
Yeah.
place to just hang out.
Yeah, like if you have a question that you want to even ask anonymously and don't want to ask it in the chat, that would be great, right? So,
Oh yeah, yeah. There was something else. What was it? Mm,
yeah.
Something on. Okay, so when you go to the website, if you've already like got on the forum, you can click. If you type something, you can click on your little picture and add your own avatar. You can use the one that you use on YouTube to make it easier for people to identify you. I thought that'd be cool, but I didn't even realize you could find a back way into there until Dan from Talk is Cheap did it. So that's the little trick to that. I can't add the menu because it's not showing up right.
Hmm.
So there's that.
Cool.
Well,
Cool.
we got
What
anything
else?
else for the day?
Trying to think. I think mostly just the symptoms. I haven't had huge shift to dreams yet, so I'm kind of like hoping that we got something good to talk about next Tuesday with the energies going on. I'm sort of on a waiting game right now. I know stuff's coming in, so it's just a matter of when.
How do you see it changing from how it's been with us? Are we going to still have these strong energies coming in? Because even Dan, I was talking to him before we went live, and I was on with him earlier on his show, and he was talking about really feeling the lows, and I've had a bunch of other people, but I think if you kind of get caught in those lows, you can just hang out there the whole month or whatever the time is, and if you don't really pull
Hmm.
yourself out,
I've had to push myself. I've had to push myself a little bit as far as to do just to try to keep busy creatively. Um, because the lows can take the breath out of you, you know. You can feel winded and completely unmotivated to do anything. So, you know, part of it and what John Binney and I talked about, you know, a couple months ago in the video is, you know, sort of how to live creatively or make it easy to be creative on a daily basis, make it really easy to have access to those things because when you're feeling like that, you have no motivation. Like you just don't. So the easier it is to do something simple easily to distract you, even if it's half an hour, can just make you feel like you did something that day.
yeah.
So yeah, so I try to just keep that little bit of creativity going and it kind of pulls me through. Um by just trying to accomplish something
Yeah.
sometimes in a day it you know is just all you need to do because it can be really hard in those times.
You know what
um
I like to do, a little tip, I don't know, it'll probably work for most people a little bit at least, is to find on YouTube, look up like an old tape you listen to like a lot when you're like a teenager or in your 20s or something like that you really enjoy. You haven't heard it in like a couple of decades, and just
yeah,
find it and play the whole thing. You'd be
yeah,
amazed at how that can change your whole feeling, and
yeah.
especially if you pick something from a happy time in life,
I agree. I put on another good thing that I do, pulling on the nostalgia feeling,
Yeah, oh
right?
yeah.
Because beginning the wash is the nostalgia. So you know what? That's a really great point to make. Shane, because I think that really is a good tool. What I have been doing, it's been the nostalgia thing. So the things that I've even been doing creatively are more things that maybe would have attracted me like when I was young, like a young child, you know, like mucking with the clay, or uh, keeping putting on old movies, putting on old, even an old cartoon that I liked like when I was a kid, just to like watch it for 20 minutes even, and it makes you laugh and it makes you feel. So I've been drawing on that welling nostalgia feeling that comes from the heart,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been doing everything I can to focus on that and ballooning and growing that feeling.
Mm.
um and so focusing on the things that you liked on that magical time when you were a child is a fantastic thing to do. I think, what would you have done as a little kid on a rainy day to amuse yourself for that day when you're feeling like that? And I think that it can simplify things for you and really help you put you back in that heart by focusing on the nostalgia. It helps put you back in that heart thing, and it makes starts to make things magic again. You start to see the magic again as opposed to being dulled. So I think that's a great tool, and I've really been doing everything I can every day to blossom that, to grow that sensation, to delve into it and pull it forth into that experience. I want to feel that way again, like that kid like way where everything is magic. And what am I going to do today? You know? So we do have to
Absolutely.
push ourselves to bring that back. But I think that nostalgia energy is there to help us with that and focusing on that.
I like that, and it's a great feeling. You know that
It
just
is.
yeah.
It starts to well up. I yeah,
It's
and
almost
I think
I don't know.
that's how we can counterbalance it.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think
go play.
tapping into that, and that's sort of the same thing I do with the whole blissful feeling. I just try to really observe the feeling of bliss in the moment, but that's even more powerful than nostalgia feeling. You know.
Yeah, yeah. And there's lots of great things. Go back into those memories of when you're a kid and what made you feel that way, you know, and whether it was books or like I started reading the Harry Potter series again because it makes me feel like that, like magic of when you're a kid. Um little things like that. Movies. I put Raiders of the Lost Ark on this week, you know, on a rainy day. And to just sit and color in one of my color books and watch Raiders of the
I was
Lost
gonna
Ark.
say that coloring book. Like
Yeah,
we would bust out the coloring books, or I would
Buster.
draw a picture. Yeah.
That's it. That's exactly it. Jigsaw puzzle, whatever it was that you liked when you were a kid. Um, and I used to do that all the time. You know, I've had something on the '70s show on the TV, and you know, I'd be messing with my Legos or doing that. Not that I have Legos out, but I mean, you get the general idea. It can just really pull that back into your experience, so it's not just all humdrum, and you can start to feel like that little kid again.
Yeah, there's
Hmm.
this show called The Goldbergs. I haven't watched it in a few years, but it takes place in the 80s, and they always like play music that was popular back then, but you don't hear it much. And they always, you know, they'll bust out whatever movie was popular at that time and
Yeah,
the games, and you'll see all the things from then. And it's so
yeah,
nostalgic watching it. And
yeah,
they always pick that perfect song at the end. It's kind of a, you know, it's a situation comedy or whatever, but they always tug at your heart by playing that music. You know what I mean? That you
yeah.
remember.
Well, I
It's
used to
pretty
go
cool.
home every day at school from school. I'd go home for lunch on my own. When I was little. You did that back then, and I was perfectly fine. And I'd watch Flintstones. I make myself two peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and a glass of chocolate milk, and watch the Flintstones and go back to school. So I've been putting Flintstones on YouTube while I eat my lunch. It makes me so happy. I like I looked up one of my other favorite shows when I was really young. I used to get up. It was on 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays. It was called The Hilarious House of Frightenstein. And it had Vincent, whatever Price. We had that spooky voice and everything. It was
Right, right.
just go look it up on any set. I don't know if anybody grew up in the '70s. They're probably gonna know what it is. It had the Wolfman on it, and I love this show. Um,
Dustin says, "You're freaking me out. I'm playing my favorite game from 1995."
Yeah.
That's hilarious. But
Yeah,
even
go play
watching
your
old
favorite games from when
commercials
you were a
and
kid.
stuff,
Yeah,
oh,
and it
it's
gives
such a
you that
weird thing.
feeling. So there's little things like that that you can do that'll just start to make you giggle again a little bit like a kid, and it just simplifies things a bit. Start to remember how simple things were back then.
Don't you remember just laying in the tall grass and looking up at the sky? How cool that was. And,
I loved climbing trees.
yeah,
I
me
would climb.
too.
I just love climbing trees and hanging and getting that view up in the tree that look out over everything. I would sit up there for ages, you know.
Oh, you went up to the skinny branches, huh?
Yeah, I was skinny. I was skinny on the skinny branches. I was, yeah, a wiry little climber. But
Once
those
it
things.
starts swaying a little too much, I'm like, I don't think I want to go any higher.
Yeah, no,
But I
I
did like
loved
climbing
it.
trees.
Yeah, loved it. Those things. I couldn't do it now. Good Lord.
Oh my god.
That's the only thing is only if only that I'm hoping part of these changes and part of this transformation is going to allow me to physically be able to experience life as a kid where you just like go play, you just had this energy, and I was on a bike constantly, swimming constantly, you know. Now it's like, oh, I do too much, but back at sore, this or that, right? We get so tired. I'm like, I want the energy too. I'm really hoping part of this transformation to light body and embodiment revigorates that whole thing. So
Yeah.
every physical activity isn't pain, you know. It's kind of, yeah, it's a little frustrating. It was like, this could just be so much fun and enjoyable if, you know, I wasn't feeling physically the age that I am. So I may
Yeah.
not look it, but I do physically feel it at times. So, and when we're experiencing these energies too, like sometimes full moon typically hits me really hard. I think I got it walloped early a couple days, but I can really feel it in my bones, and you just weigh so heavy, and you don't, you know, you're just like, ugh, why am I even alive? Right? That's a great time to throw in one of those retro movies or whatever it is, and just give yourself a break. Pretend that you're sick from school, like you played hooky from school, playing sick, and you're home all day watching cartoons all day and doing whatever you want, and eating, and it's okay, you know, like whatever it is you have to do.
And enjoy all the Mandela effects, of course. If you're
Yeah.
laying down watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, or what was the one you
Yeah.
just mentioned? It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood.
This neighborhood, not the neighborhood, and this, yeah.
Yeah, it's this now. And
I don't know.
something else you mentioned. It was so yeah. It's just weird that I don't know. It's an exciting topic, but I'm sure you notice a lot of things. Especially if you watched them a lot as a kid.
So many. But then it's like almost like my memory gets so blurry now. Like what we were talking about before with timelines closing. And it's like sometimes now I look at different memories and it's like looking at it through a fishbowl. It's really weird. So, and sometimes it's like I have double memories. Like I know if you ever heard people talk about that, like maybe you have double memories of Mandela effects and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it really is like these different timelines closing. So you have like multiple awarenesses of things.
Yeah, like you'll
Really
remember it both
peculiar.
ways.
So I
Like
kind of like, it's all just wishy-washy to me now. I'm like, eh.
yeah, a lot of times I'll tune into Moneybags when he puts a new one out, and he'll leave a choice there, and I'm like, well, it's this or this. I'll know the two choices, but
What if it's
why am I
both?
remembering both? You know?
Yeah. So who knows? It's just the malleability of stories in our environment and how we project them. In these timelines closing. So that's why I pull away less and less from stories too. Because what is truth?
Right.
Like, what is it? It can change, evidently.
Well, I know there's
So,
people that think this is an evil thing happening. This is the Great Delusion and all of this stuff. But the way I see it, it's a positive thing. It's been positive for me. And if there's some benevolent agency up there that can hack little things of our reality and change them, and most of the world don't even notice, then I know it can change things in my personal reality. And I'm totally not afraid of any accidents or anything like that.
no, no, you can't be.
Yeah.
You know what? Because you got to remember you're responsible for that projection.
Yeah.
You're responsible for your belief system and projecting that out there. So
Putting out the
really
permission
decide.
slip.
Really decide. Is that really the viewpoint you want to have? Like
Hmm.
that it's things are evil or this or that. Like
Yeah, because if you're looking for devils, you'll find them, right?
Oh, for sure. But yeah, yeah, and then that's part of the, the thing too is, where the power that negative entities and such can get, the only power they have is in your belief in them, or your belief in their ability
It's like handing
to
over a
harm you.
permission slip, saying,
Yeah,
"Yeah, I'll play in this game with you." You know,
yeah, but
I
you're
choose not
agreeing,
to. Right? Yeah.
to that, in a sense. Oh, yes, you can frighten me, yes, you can harm me, yes, you're scary, yes, you're evil, yes, you're this, instead of you are nothing,
Right.
to
And I often
within
use the
this
term
sphere.
ankle biters, but they're not even ankle biters. They're just like
No,
not in your fishbowl, like we
no,
discussed.
no. Yeah, no, not my house. Yeah, you want to see medieval? Bring that shift in my house. I'll show you medieval.
I'll shift you back,
Oh yeah,
right?
oh yeah. You want to play? Mhm. Yeah. So I think that's
Awesomeness.
it. I think that's good for today. I think, yeah.
Yeah, we're all
Unless
good.
anybody's got questions or anything else.
No, everybody seems to be good. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything here. Of course, you guys watching this later can leave comments below. We'll check them out. But no, I think this is a good one. 56 minutes. It's close enough to an hour.
Perfect. Oh yeah. Okay. Great. Great. Great.
All right. Lots of love to all of you guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Michelle,
Yeah.
thank you
See
for
you
being
next week.
here.
Love you, brother. Love all of you, and thanks for all your support, guys. I really appreciate hearing it. So it means a
Yes,
lot.
thank you guys.
Hmm.
Peace. If you'd like to support the work I do, go to paypal.me/UOTF. Thanks.